Very good morning and welcome to Monaghan on Sunday the 8th of May. Coming up, 2 hours of agenda-setting interviews from the heart of Westminster. Well, the new Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, accused the Prime Minister of using tactics from Donald Trump's playbook in the divisive mayoral election campaign. In just a moment, I'll be joined by the Shadow Defence Secretary, Labour's Emily Thornberry. And as David Cameron prepares to launch the next phase of the EU referendum campaign, I'll be hearing from Suzanne Evans, the former Deputy Chairman of UKIP and now a board member of the Vote Leave campaign. And we'll be taking a look through the top stories in today's papers with the Labour MP, David Lammy, the Conservative MP Nusgani and the author Bonnie Greer. And just a reminder, you can join in the conversation through social media if you use the hashtag Monaghan, and you can follow the programme on Twitter at Sky Monaghan. Please do join in. But first, today's headlines from Sky Centre with Samantha Simmons. Good morning, Samantha.
Morning, Dermot. Thank you. Good morning. Our top stories on Sky News. Union leaders and the government will return to the negotiating table tomorrow, hoping to break the deadlock in the dispute over the new junior doctors' contract. The talks were agreed after the Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt announced a 5-day pause in the imposition of the controversial deal. The potential breakthrough follows months of industrial action. Junior doctors are hoping a new study released last week will help combat the government's arguments about patient safety over the weekend.
This new study shows that you are not more likely to die at the weekend if you go in compared to the weekday. Patients that are admitted during the weekend are sicker, and that may contribute to a slightly higher risk, naturally, because they are sicker. But actually, that whole basis has been smashed recently. So the government and Jeremy Hunt, we've been saying this for months, that what they have been saying has to be scrutinised properly, and now it has been in a paper, and they need to address that. They need to come out and tell the public what the truth is.
Thousands more people have been evacuated after the wildfires in Canada doubled in size in just one day. The fires now cover 494,000 acres. That's an area bigger than Greater London. The authorities say there are more than 1,400 firefighters tackling blazes across the province. In total, there are 43 wildfires burning. 7 of them are out of control. Well, Canadian authorities say they expect to be fighting the wildfire for months. While there are hopes that showers expected in Canada today could slow the spread of the fire, firefighters say it won't be enough to put it out. No deaths or injuries have been reported since the fire started last Sunday. The new Labour Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has said Labour can only win elections if it reaches beyond its own activists. In a clear message to the party's leader, Jeremy Corbyn. Separately, in a column for The Observer, the newly elected mayor also said the Conservatives used fear and innuendo during the mayoral campaign to turn ethnic and religious groups against each other in a bid to win votes. Mr Khan will be attending a Holocaust memorial event later today. 2 of the country's former spy chiefs have warned that leaving the European Union could hamper the UK's ability to prevent terrorism. Writing in the Sunday Times, the former heads of MI5 and MI6 say the UK's exchange of information with other EU countries could be damaged if the country left the EU.
If we leave the European Union, we will make it more difficult for our partner countries to hold together the fabric of the European Union, which has kept stability in Europe for the last 60 or 70 years, effectively since the Second World War. And so there's a risk of fragmentation of the European Union, which in turn could lead to instability.
Yesterday was the hottest day of the year so far. Temperatures are set to get even higher today, reaching 27 degrees Celsius in some places. That's 81 Fahrenheit. Parts of the UK will be hotter than Istanbul or Spain. The Met Office is warning that the heat could lead to what it's calling intense thunderstorms across the country.
Thank you, Samantha. Now, 2 former heads of Britain's intelligence agencies, as you've just been hearing, have warned leaving the EU would pose a security risk. Writing in the Sunday Times, the former leaders of MI5 and MI6 say a vote for Brexit could undermine what they describe as our ability to protect ourselves from terrorists. Well, the Shadow Defence Secretary, Emily Thornberry, is with me now. And a very good morning to you. Your reaction to that, do you go along with these, esteemed former heads of our 2 main intelligence agencies?
I think that we should take very seriously what people who have no political axe to grind have to say on this, and they are experts on it. And so, yes, I think that one of the major reasons for remaining in the European Union is in order to ensure that we safeguard our security. I think our ability to be able to exchange information and to be able to work with allies is very important indeed.
OK, so that endorsed. Now, let's stay with the issue of security. And Sadiq Khan, of course, elected as the new mayor of London. I mean, do you believe, as some of the Conservative side has said, that London is a less safe city as a result?
I think that Michael Fallon, particularly my opposite number, has made the most outrageous claims about Sadiq Khan, and I think that he should take them back. I think it's an insult. And I'm very angry about it. I'm very angry about the way in which they ran this campaign. I think they tried to divide London, and frankly, London came back with a resounding answer, which is we are a multiracial, multicultural city, and we're proud of it. We like it that way. We're not going to have anybody divide us.
So, dog whistle, the Donald Trump playbook, it's been turned.
I think that's absolutely right. I think that's absolutely what it was. And I think they shouldn't be forgiven. I think they should apologise. And I think we should never see anything like that again. And, you know, I think it is fantastic to have seen Sadiq elected with such a resounding victory on Thursday. And also look at Bristol. I mean, Bristol, where we have an Afro-Caribbean mayor now who doubled his vote from 4 years ago. It's amazing. It's such good news.
Well, I mean, let's talk about Bristol and London, because, you know, Jeremy Corbyn, your leader, of course, went to Bristol to celebrate that event as Sadiq Khan was being sworn in London. Do you think there's a bit of a rift between the two?
Well, what can you do? You know, go and win 2 mayoralties in the way that we did on the same night. You can't be in 2 places at once. So he went down to Bristol, because I think actually there's not been a lot of attention paid to Bristol, but it is an extraordinary result in Bristol to have doubled the number of votes in 4 years. I mean, it is really showing a difference. People keep saying that Labour can't win in the South East. Well, hey, you know, we have had a fantastic result in Bristol, a fantastic result in London. We've had great results in Exeter and Southampton.
Okay,
you know.
some of the major conurbations.
Yeah.
OK, but on the issue of Sadiq Khan, it hasn't taken long to distance himself, has he, from Jeremy Corbyn? Corbynistas, as they're called, are tweeting this morning saying, well, we supported him throughout his campaign, and now he says all this about big tents. We've got to be a centrist party. We've got to appeal to people who voted Conservative. We've got to tell people who we want to come back to vote for us that the economy is safe in our hands.
Well, who would disagree with that? Of course we've got to be a big tent, and of course we've got to appeal to everybody.
You think Jeremy Corbyn's doing that?
Of course that's right. Jeremy wouldn't disagree with that. You know, we need to make sure that we stop talking amongst ourselves about ourselves and gazing at our navels, and we need to be able to get out there and fight some elections and speak to people about issues that matter. You know, Sadiq was absolutely right to talk about housing. You know, guess what? Jeremy Corbyn's last question at Prime Minister's Questions was about housing. Did David Cameron answer it? No. David Cameron wanted to talk about Islamophobia. You know, we had the answers on issues that people were interested in. That's why we have done as well as we have done in many of the places that we have.
So you're saying Jeremy Corbyn runs this big tent, one nation, that he can appeal, and you must know the statistics that you're faced with after the overall election results, particularly in Scotland, that Labour, to win the next general election, has to achieve a 13% swing in England. That's not likely to happen in London.
I mean, I'm not saying that it's not going to be hard, but, you know, let's also put on the table the other facts. So, you know, so we did 4% better than we did in the general election. So we are going in the right direction. Of course, Scotland is a big issue. No one's going to pretend that we don't have big problems in Scotland. But I'll tell you, where we have got to in Scotland now is the SNP have got devolved all the powers that they need. They are now the establishment in Scotland. If things go wrong in Scotland, it is their fault. There are no more excuses. You know, falling results in the schools people need to point the finger at the Scots Nats. And I think there will come a time when we need to be able to build our fight back. You know, there was a time, wasn't there, when Boris Johnson won the second mayoralty in London, people were saying, oh, Labour's never going to win this again, and so on. Well, we did, and we show that we can. You can fight back. We have ups and downs, and in London we're currently on an up, but in Scotland we've clearly got a long way to go.
How eagerly are Labour going to fight for Britain to remain within the European Union? We're reading today that Jeremy Corbyn, who we were expecting to rail in foursquare now behind the campaign, he's taking a 10-day holiday towards the end of the campaign before the vote.
Well, I mean, I think it's been pretty full on for Jeremy, hasn't it, since he was elected as leader. I do think that when Parliament's not sitting, he should be allowed to have a few days off. We will be campaigning full out to stay in Europe. you know, Labour is a united party on this issue, and we will be speaking with one voice. It is a team effort, and for Jeremy to have a few days off, I don't think is something that anyone should begrudge.
Before one of the most important decisions facing the entirety of the United Kingdom.
And he's going to be campaigning on the issue, and he's going to be going up and down the country, as he has been throughout these local council elections. You know, he will be doing it, and so will I, and so will the rest of the party. It's really important that we stay in Europe.
OK, just want to ask you about, we were discussing Islamophobia earlier, weren't we, the accusations of that. What about Ken Livingstone? Man you know well, a friend of yours, isn't he, Ken Livingstone, really? You know, that whole anti-Semitism row, I was talking to him as well after the elections on Friday, and he was at it again. Do you think he's got a point, though? He clearly thinks it's very important to make that point about the alleged link, he says, between Hitler and Zionism.
No, I don't. No, I don't. I think that Jewish people have played a really important role in the development of the Labour Party. They have played a really important role on the left, and I think that we have to make it perfectly clear that they are central to the Labour Party and remain central to the Labour Party. And I think that any examples of anti-Semitism have to be rooted out, and I'm really pleased that Shami Chakrabarti has taken the role that she has.
Well, Sadiq Khan's saying he feels that Labour didn't act quickly enough on it. Do you agree with that?
Well, I mean, I think it took a couple of days, but, you know, we've done it. And we've set up this inquiry, and we've set it up under somebody who's universally respected.
But you've still got Ken Livingstone could be back in the party. He's suspended, as I say, was at it again. Do you think historically, I mean, he says it's historical fact.
There will be an inquiry. Ken can say what he has to say to the NEC, and a decision will be made.
Right. Now, Ken Livingstone has also been, and we talked about this before, hasn't he, involved in the Trident review or not, or he's certainly had a few thoughts about Trident. Where are we with Labour's review about the renewal, the replacement of Trident?
I'm doing a defence review, as is Labour Party policy. So Labour Party policy is that there is to be a review. So when I was given the job, I was given the job of doing a review of all of defence. That means looking at the 21st century threats to Britain and how we keep Britain safe. Because of all jobs that politicians have, we have to keep our people safe above everything else. As part of that, I'm doing a review into whether or not we should be in favour of the renewal of the Trident submarines. That is only a part of it, but it is certainly part of it. And I appreciate that when I come out with my review, the only bit that people are likely to read will be the bit on Trident.
Yeah, well, because, you know, thousands of jobs and billions of pounds to be spent on.
I'm doing an interim report, which I'm hoping to release at the end of May, but that's only an interim, and that's then going to feed into the national policy-making process of the Labour Party.
But you've given some intriguing, I suppose, pointers as to the way you're thinking. Do you still believe that technology is developing so fast that submarines may become more or less obsolete because they will become easier to detect?
I think that we have to, as part of the review, look at whether or not these boats will be out of date by the time they hit the water in the 2030s, and whether they will still be cutting-edge technologies by the 2060s. Because we want to, this will be the single biggest investment this government will make in anything. And for heaven's sake, we want to make sure that it is as effective as it possibly can be. So it is right to ask these questions. There are problems, you know, I think, on the horizon in that, you know, billions of pounds are being invested in anti-submarine technology. We need to be confident that if we do buy this new system, that it will still be able to hide in opaque seas. We also have to look at, there is a series of other threats.
But didn't you say it was like trying to patrol the sky with Spitfires? I mean, you're more or less convinced that they will become.
What I was saying was that we have. In the defence industry, you talk about platforms. So you talk about, you know, we'll have this particular type of ship. It won't get out of date because we can bolt on this and we can add this. I was talking about the Tornadoes, which are actually relatively elderly planes, and they are as elderly as if we had Spitfires over the shores in the 1980s. But the Tornadoes could be absolutely cutting-edge technology by adding things to it. The question is, will the platform, will hiding very large submarines in the sea still work in the 2060s?
Now, I know as part of this review, you got in confusion about the DEFCON levels, the defence condition levels. You now got Damien McBride advising you, haven't you? I've read his book. He's very good at prepping his charges, as he says, with all the essential information they should have. So now, no doubt, you've got your DEFCON levels as potential Secretary of State for Defence sorted out. So DEFCON 1 is...
So the Daily Mail, in fact, wrote out, had a little card that I was supposed to keep in my handbag. The point I was trying to make was that hang on. Let me just make this point. The point I was trying to make was some people say that we should have continual at-sea nuclear deterrence. So the submarine should be out at all times, right? Because if there was to be a time of heightened tension and we were to suddenly have another submarine go out, then that would in turn spiral out tension. The point I'm making is that there are publicly acknowledged and indeed publicised states of readiness.
Yes.